Değerli katılımcılar, bir sonraki konuğumuz Profesör Jared Solo. Kendisi Louisiana Eyalet Üniversitesi Muhasebe Bölümü öğretim üyesidir. İç denetim, kurumsal yönetişim, risk yönetimi konularında çalışmaları bulunmaktadır. Saygın akademik dergilerde birçok makalesi vardır. IAA Global'ın Akademik İlişkiler Komitesi'nin yeni başkanı oldu. Kendisine başarılar diliyorum. Jared ile 5 yıldır bu komitede zaten birlikte çalışıyoruz ve kendisi meslektaşımdır. Uzaktan çalışma ve eğitim konusunda bir konuşma yapacak. Dear participants, our next guest speaker is Professor Jared Solo. He is a professor in Department of Accounting at Louisiana State University. He has several articles in esteemed academic journals about internal audit, corporate governance, and risk management. He is the chair of IAA Global Economic Relations Committee, and we have been working together in the committee for 5 years. My colleague, Professor Jared Solo, will talk about working and educating remotely. I personally thank him very much for accepting our offer and sharing his valuable thoughts. Dear Jared, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Nur. It's a pleasure to be joining you, although it is remotely. It is we've been learning so much in regards to academia in Turkey with Nur's participation on our committee. I believe it was 2 years ago that we had the opportunity to all meet together and then virtually tune in to the academia forum that was going on while we were holding in-person meetings, and so it's been great.
It was in Dubai.
Yes. So it's been great to kind of stay abreast and to work together. There's truly one of my favorite members to get to visit with each time that we come together, and it's truly an honor to be with you guys today.
Likewise.
And not knowing this, but excuse me, some of my thoughts kind of pertain directly to what Professor DALY had to say, and so that I find that quite interesting, being that we come from very different backgrounds, but we see similar things. So I'm not sure. Let me see if I can share my screen and bring up my presentation.
Yes.
Let me see if I can see anything else. Okay. So just starting, I call this tips for working and/or educating in a remote environment. And you know, it was the worst of times, it was the best of times, and as we go through this, hopefully we'll see a little bit of both of those. I think that currently, you know, we can argue clearly it's not the worst of times, but for some individuals, it very well may be. This is the worst of times that they've experienced. But I think with that comes a lot of opportunities that hopefully present themselves. And so clearly these are just my own thoughts and do not reflect the university, Louisiana State University, the IA, or the IA Academic Relations Committee. Just an overview of the topic. But I think that working remotely comes into habits, and it's addressing some of the things that Professor DALY had just mentioned. And so what are some of your habits? Think through some of those things that maybe we consider habits. And one of the things, though, that we think with habits, with just the term, is that it has a negative connotation. Whenever we focus on bad habits, there are also good habits. And one of the things that is the challenge is to try to create those good habits and to acknowledge those good habits, and even to celebrate certain of those habits. Whenever we think about successful people, time and time again, some of the things that we hear about them are they're motivated, highly motivated. They're hardworking, and some are, and some may not be, because they are much more efficient. And so maybe we don't connotate that to being hardworking. very seldom that you ever hear of anybody not reading a lot that is very successful. And then the other things, not just from a physical perspective, but also from a mental perspective, exercising and dieting are probably two pretty critical things too. And so one of the things that I once heard is that in 21 days, you can create a habit. Now, hopefully those are the good habits that you are creating and not the bad habits. And so thinking about it, so we thought that, you know, we were in a 2-week or a 3-week period of a new environment. And now we're 2+ months at least here, and continuing to go with potentially some sight of when we may see our offices again, if you will. So my experience from working remotely prior to COVID-19 dealt specifically in the field of internal audit. And I was on the road for 2 weeks and at home for 2 weeks. And so some of the things, so technology, and this was long ago, so technology wasn't where it is today, and clearly technology has created a lot of advantages that we have. But part of it is the ability to pick up that new technology. So from working from home, what was most important for me was maintaining that routine of starting the day. Going back to what Professor DALY said, dressing for work. It's quite interesting. One of the things that I read recently is that, you know, a lot of professional clothing sales is down, whereas pajamas, the sales are up. And so that kind of goes against exactly what he was saying. But I think that starting that day off with the same way that you would whenever you do go into the office kind of sets the tone for your day. Keeping consistent lunch times. And maybe sometimes that changes just because of meetings, but it's something to kind of focus on. And then even on that exercise, whether it's at home or on the road, the consistency helps to create those habits that you have. From a perspective of educating remotely, there's 2 different methods that we can do this at. One is synchronous and the other is asynchronous. And so the other option is both, in which we can record the synchronous and provide it in an asynchronous fashion. And I have thoughts on each of these because clearly one works for some and one works better for others, but it depends on those habits that we create. It depends on that motivation. And so the nice thing about synchronous is we have same time in a virtual environment. One of the limitations of it, though, is the ability to see those nonverbal cues, to know what students allow us to know. And in general, that has to come verbally because we don't have all the options to be able to see them, whether they turn on their screen or not, and then also the number of them versus being there face to face. In addition to that, a lot of times students may want to use chat questions as opposed to asking the questions in real time online where everybody can see it or hear it, should I say. And the problem with that is we don't get the nonverbals with it. And in addition, it's very difficult to have the follow-ups to manage both the technology as well as the chat room simultaneously. Asynchronous, it's great as well because now students can do it on demand. However, one of the problems with the demand option is that there's no class environment. There's no networking opportunities. The lack of, or the challenges with those soft skills that Professor DALY even talked about, those soft skills of staying in touch with people, ensuring that we're communicating with each other and that our personal relationships, are not taking a back seat to technology and the circumstances that we're in. I think the other side of asynchronous is the concern of shortcut to learning. And what I mean by that is if I wait asynchronous allows me to create a bad habit of waiting to the last minute to look at things. And then that creates a demand for me to then ask questions at the last minute. It's going to shortcut the learning process. And I probably shouldn't even say shortcut the learning process. It's going to take away from the learning process. So for me, or from my perspective, what works for some may not work for others, clearly. But is to create that consistency, to create those habits of delivery of that message, and also the expectations that we have. Yes, flexibility is there to record and provide synchronous in the asynchronous delivery method. And one of my concerns is I have to look and overcome maybe the perspective of delivering too much, because of the fact now with asynchronous, I can deliver continuously. And so I have to make sure that I give a balance to the students as well. The ability to respond to live questions in synchronous mode, it's a lot easier in that way, so that if there's a follow-up question, it's easily addressed. So from a synchronous versus synchronous, my preference is synchronous when the ability is there. Nonverbal cues are not as defined as they are within the face-to-face environment. But it's another thing that is important is the ability to ask questions in this new medium. Because I believe that it does develop skills for the future. One of the other things, I'm kind of laughing at my slides here, because usually my slides have very few words, but one of the things that I find in delivering through technology is that I place more words on slides. And it's just something that kind of has come into the habit in this new medium. Increase responsibility for students to stay up to date. And I think that we can do that through quizzes and different other environments or other tools. So learning remotely, I think, is another thing to consider. And that's all about knowing what works for you as a student or as a professional, creating the habits. And I think that those habits are very similar to working remotely. Too frequently, whenever I interface with students, I see them in the bedroom, right, sitting on the bed, just the opposite of what Professor DALY just mentioned. And the other thing is flexibility is great, but it's only great if you manage the flexibility and create that consistency and not getting behind. Distractions can be a problem. And so as he just mentioned, children and pets, they don't know specifically what the schedule is, and so sometimes we have to create those boundaries, whether it be family members or roommates or whatever. And I like the idea of a kind of a key word to make notice of it. But communicating the schedule will help facilitate that. And so we have times to focus. And so sometimes maybe we have to go outside of our boundary of time to do that and make sure that it's at a time that minimizes any conflicts. And then sometimes maybe we have ad hoc availability, and then hopefully we are able to enjoy a wide open schedule. But part of it is sticking to the schedule when we can. Clearly there are changes with that. Upscaling. I think that one of the things that I just mentioned is the ability to, for the best of times, and I see this in some individuals maybe losing out on the time that they have right now. So time and land are basically the two of the things that they don't make any more of, right? And so with any kind of additional time that we may see from downtime, from changes in our schedule, from flexibility, what are the new things that we can learn that are applicable to our work environment, the next job that we want, whatever it may be? And so some of the things within our profession, to me, deal with risk management, statistical analysis, new computer programs that maybe I can learn, data management, and visualization. All of these things have kind of been hot topics, and clearly risk management is one of the most thought about as of late with everything that is going on. And so I think some of the benefits that come through these unprecedented times are benefits that maybe we can demonstrate our adaptability and our flexibility as professionals to move into a new platform, to move into a new way of communication. The ability to manage our time efficiently, I think, is critical as well. And taking that flexibility to upscale and to learn new technologies. I'll be honest, Zoom was out of my realm. I wouldn't use Zoom prior to now, and now I find myself on it multiple times a day, learning new different things that you can do within it from its different features. And I think the other side of this, at least for our students, and even for our practitioners, right? Everything changes about interviewing people, right? Whether it be for a job or whether it be interviewing one of our clients, right? And understanding and how to read verbal cues from them remotely. So just to wrap up, I know it's getting late in the day there, but I think the important things from this are to create good habits, right? So start on day one of 21 days. Identify new skills and learning resources and opportunities that are going to make you more valuable, and also help your organization to be better. Consider the best options for meeting and for working. Sometimes maybe it is important to have a Zoom meeting, and other times maybe it's simply an email. I think one of the challenges that we do have, though, is over communicating in some cases. Sometimes less is more. And then changes are abound. We need to prepare to embrace them because they're going to come whether we want them to come or not. And we need to use our preparation for our benefit and for the benefit of our organization. That's basically the presentation that I had. Glad to take any questions that might exist.
Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Ever. Jared is joining from Louisiana, Baton Rouge, so it's early in the morning. What time is it there, Jared?
Oh, we're at 9 o'clock now, so we're
okay. Cool. It's 5 p.m. here, so it's not so late. Don't worry. Thank you so much for your presentation and sharing your ideas with us. Here I have two questions. I would like to forward them to you. One is saying that in recent years, companies have been developing their learning strategies to become more accessible and digital. What kind of structural reforms do you think are necessary for companies to provide efficient learning process other than traditional e-learning strategies?
I'm sorry, 1 second. I'm trying to get the video panel back. I think that depends on the culture of the organization, really. I mean, I think that there's going to be a number of different ways that this is going to take place. But one of the things is, one of my concerns is, what happens to the culture without the ability to have these learnings in a let me pause there, synchronous mode, so that individual members can discuss with one another, so that if they do have a future problem, they can go back and try to have a resource that they can contact, say, whenever we learn this, what's your knowledge of it? Because otherwise, we're going to be left with a database of who knows what, and the personal connections are going to be less there. I think that the other thing is, and this was a challenge for us at LSU, most of the courses that I teach are very technology driven. And so we spend time in the lab. And so some of our programs were not available virtually, not available for students to download. And so that creates the other challenge. So I think that ensuring, and going back, I believe Dr. DALY had mentioned about the Chromebooks and the differences in technologies that we have at home versus in the office environment. But to set up virtual servers that work and operate as a remote desktop so that we can access the technologies remotely without having to have the infrastructure at home, I think are some of the critical things.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Although I can classify myself as a modern and technology liking person, I have to confess that I prefer face-to-face learning. They talk about blended education, you know, online and face-to-face. But I would prefer face-to-face more than online education because it drops that virtual environment, drops the feeling of face-to-face cultural exchange between you and the students, you know.
No question about it. It's hard, and I mean, you know, some people have different interpretations of professors, but you know, in my class, I mean, it's about knowing the students, knowing what is their interest, knowing you know, who they are, and I haven't seen how we can do that virtually. It just doesn't happen. You don't pass them in the hall and get to have those conversations with them. And so I think that those are some of the major challenges in the development of those interpersonal skills. It is also a challenge.
I agree. Here's another question. If there's a need of improving physical skill of an employee or an instructor or a student, how to use the hardware that is not available at their home? What changes should be made on current e-learning tools to satisfy those needs?
I guess from a physical perspective, one of the things that I try to do best, or I try to do whenever there's that concern of not being able to see something remotely or do something remotely, is to go ahead and try to take over their computer, to work with them so that they can see exactly what I'm doing, or to try to coach them. The challenge is remote, but you know, thinking about it, if there were certain physical aspects to that, you know, one of the things that I find interesting is my son does karate. He's 7 years old, right? And he is on Zoom doing karate, which, you know, requires the ability to kind of coach on those physical motions and things. So it's amazing to see the adaptation that so many people have taken so quickly with technology.
Yeah, I agree. What is your plan for fall term in Louisiana?
As of right now, that's still up to be determined. So we are we'll get an update next week. Our plan is to go face to face.
Okay.
Start the semester.
Yeah, ours is too.
We traditionally have a 2-day break in the fall, followed by a 2-day Thanksgiving break also in the fall, followed by a week of classes and then by a week of finals. But there is concern of coming back after those breaks. So canceling one of the breaks and then finishing up remotely, which personally I'm not a fan of. I think that we start the class face-to-face, we should plan to finish it face-to-face, whether that means
hopefully
starting earlier or coming up with an alternative schedule. I think that provides the best educational opportunities.
Yes, but in large, wide classrooms, we're going to, you know, let them stay, you know, sit apart from each other.
Yes, Well, anything over 100 students has already been decided it will be delivered virtually.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and we'll space out any smaller class into a bigger classroom.
Unfortunately, your first ARC meeting as a chair will be virtual.
Yes, but maybe it'll be easier for us to attend. So we may we may do some things that are different. So
because when we get together, it's really fun. I like being there, you know. Yeah. All right. Here's my personal question, which my colleagues in IAA Turkey are very, very curious about it, because we've been working together for 5 years, and you have been a member. Now you're the chair. My question is like this: how do you perceive IAA Turkey in comparison with other institutes and chapters that you've been working with?
I mean, I think the things that you are doing and IAA Turkey is doing, I think, I'm sorry for the lighting, it just changes sometimes, I don't know why. I think provides a really great view of things that are going on there. We see the growth in the membership. We see the growth in the number of CIAs. We see, you know, a new journal that is coming out there. The first of my knowledge from an academia perspective that has a focus on not just internal audit, but what I call the umbrella of internal audit, because too many people, I think, maybe restrict internal audit to things that it is not, and do not give it full credit for the breadth that it has underneath the umbrella. I personally see all these things, and each time we meet, I'm always interested to see what's new going on, and how you guys are moving the profession forward. So
thank you.
It's always great to catch up and to hear the updates, and wish we did certain things in a similar fashion. So.
Thank you. Here's another question that I have received now. He's my colleague from the university, Uğurtan. He's asking, what is the most disturbing, what is the most uncomfortable thing for you in online teaching? I can answer this question before you may think about it. Well, I don't feel the feelings of my students. Sometimes they don't show up even, they just have their names when I'm, you know, lecturing the course. I can't see their eyes and I can't, you know, feel them. That's the thing that I don't like to have in my speech. It's not lecturing, it should be interactive, you know, teaching, learning. So what do you say?
I agree completely. I think the other thing is there's the potential for shortcuts to be taken. Because when we came online, everything came online at once, and any kind of monitoring solution for examinations has kind of gone out the window to a certain extent. They're still there, but the amount of issues that they have with them, I think, provides another concern. And so it's about how do you modify exams in a way that you know, you can ensure that a student has the environment locked down in the way that you would in a face-to-face classroom, and the monitoring going on. So, I mean, I think there are risk concerns there, but going back to what you said, the ability to see if somebody is catching on to what it is that you're talking about, to deliver questions and receive that confirming information are all challenges. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think that the face-to-face environment is so important. It seems as though our students also believe that, because my understanding is you have a lot of students that are thinking about sitting out a semester or even a year if classes do not resume in face-to-face.
Yeah. I agree. Jared, thank you so much. In the name of myself and my TİDE colleagues, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, sharing your time with us. You were really the guest speaker that we really enjoyed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
See you soon then. Take care. Best regards to your dear wife and to your kid.
Thank you. You have a great day.
Good night.
Good night.
Good day to you. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Evet, Jared'e çok teşekkür ediyoruz. John Daly'ye çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Ve Uluslararası Akademik Forum'un uluslararası bölümünde bu şekilde tamamlamış oluyoruz. Çok teşekkürler.